Ladies and gentlemen, good day and welcome to the Hindustan Petroleum Corporation Limited Q1 FY22 results conference call, hosted by UBS Securities. As a reminder, all participant lines will be in the listen-only mode, and there will be an opportunity for you to ask questions after the presentation concludes. Should you need assistance during the conference call, please signal an operator by pressing star then zero on your touchtone phone. Please note that this conference is being recorded. I now hand the conference over to Mr. Amit Rustagi from UBS Securities. Thank you, and over to you, sir.
Thanks, Faizan. Dear all, I am your host, Amit Rustagi from UBS Securities, and I welcome all the participants on this call. I wish everybody is keeping safe along with their families. I would now like to welcome HPCL management team led by Shri M.K. Surana, Chairman and Managing Director, and Shri Rajneesh Narang, CFO and Executive Director, along with other senior management members. It's our pleasure to host HPCL on this call. Now I would like to hand over the call to Mr. Surana for his opening remarks. Sir, over to you, please.
Thanks, Amit, and good afternoon to everyone who has joined this call, and thanks for your time and your interest in HPCL on a continuous basis. I am Surana, MC and MD HPCL. I am joined with Mr. Rajneesh Narang, who is a ED Corporate Finance and CFO of the company. Just to start the thing, the year 21-22, the first quarter again is started with the second wave of coronavirus, which did force lockdown in some parts of the country. Of course, the lockdown of this quarter was different than the same quarter last year. In the sense, last year was a complete lockdown, industrial activities were completely stopped. This time, the severity was more in terms of the casualties, but the lockdown was not complete, and the activities were not completely stopped. The interstate travel was also not completely stopped. In this background, the demand of petroleum products in this quarter was better than what it was in the first quarter of last year, and as a result, petrol showed a growth of almost 36%, HSD 22%. LPG had always been higher, even last year also, but still it showed a further growth of around 2.6%. ATF showed a growth of more than 100% compared to last year 2020 first quarter. But if we compare to quarter 29 first quarter, there was still a gap with the pre-pandemic demand to the extent of around 14 to 20% on a quarter basis. But come July, the growth and quick recovery was sharper, and petrol crossed the pre-pandemic demand, and in July month of 2021, the petrol demand was almost 5% above July 2019. However, HSD was lower by almost 8.9%. ATF was around 45% lower than 2019 July demand. So we can say that the petrol demand already reached the pre-pandemic one and showed a positive growth. HSD is still around 9% shorter than the pre-pandemic demand. On the crack side, compared to Q1 of last year to the Q1 of this year, there was an improvement on cracks on both MS, HSD. MS cracks, the average last year was around $0.5 and this quarter was almost $8.05. HSD was last year first quarter was around 3.18 and this year first quarter was around $5. So there was a general improvement in cracks of MS and HSD. As far as crude prices are concerned, that significantly increased. Last year first quarter it was around $29 average, and this year First quarter it was around $69 average. And the exchange rate was, rupee was slightly appreciating, but there was a volatility in the rupee exchange rate throughout the quarter. Now the increased crude prices, improved cracks had a positive and the negative impact, in the sense that the positive cracks did help on the GRM. The higher crude price had a negative impact in terms of higher cost of the fuel which we burn to run the refineries. As far as HPCL is concerned, I think some of you may be aware that we took a shutdown for Mumbai Refinery in the first quarter on 1st of April itself. That was planned for the major revamp and hookup of our Mumbai Refinery expansion plan. And even though there was a threat of corona, but it was a planned activity and we decided to go ahead with it. And I'm glad that we have completed that part in spite of the challenges which we faced due to corona, second wave of corona. But with the persistent efforts of all the team members, they could complete the shutdown part and the revamp part, ensuring the safety of the workers. And I'm happy to share that at one point of time we were having around 15,000 labor at site, but in Mumbai Refinery shutdown we did not have any casualty because of corona pandemic, and for that we took several efforts to ensure the safety of the workers. We also used some of the new modern techniques to complete the project, especially because the oxygen became in short supply. The industrial use of oxygen was prohibited, and oxygen is an essential commodity for the construction work, especially for welding, cutting, etc. We used some of the new techniques, including the water jet cutting, to ensure that the jobs continue. And as of date, the revamp work and the hookup jobs are completed, and the units are in pre-commissioning mode, and we hope to commission the Mumbai Refinery expansion units in this month itself. It will add 2 million metric ton of capacity to Mumbai Refinery. It may take around 1.5 months to 2 months to reach to the full capacity, because whenever you do a complex revamp of this nature, I can mention this is one of the most complex revamp which any refinery would have done, but we have successfully completed it. And so the ramp up is normally done consciously and cautiously, and that's what I'm mentioning. But we may achieve the full capacity even earlier than that. On the Vizag Refinery side, our Vizag Refinery expansion unit jobs are progressed well, even in spite of the corona. Though there was some reduction in the labor at the site, but still the job continued with more efficiency, some new techniques, and we are hoping to complete all the VRMP units in this financial year itself, except the bottom upgradation, which will be completing by the end of the calendar year 22. With this, VRMP project will also get completed. Our other three cross-country pipeline projects, that is Vijayawada Dharmapuri pipeline, Charan Hassan Challapalli pipeline, and Badmer Palanpur pipeline are running ahead of schedule, and we hope to complete these three projects also in the financial year 22-23. As far as Rajasthan Refinery is concerned, their progress is also quite good. We have already started receiving the main equipment. In fact, around 5 long lead items and the major critical equipment has already been dispatched 2 weeks back and will be reaching site. Our main CDU column is completed and will be getting erected soon. It was constructed at site because of the large size, it could not have been possible to transport it, and other activities are also going on, progressing there. Now, as far as the current year results are concerned, we made a PAT of 1,795 crores, and with a sales of the total market sale of 8.83 million metric ton, we showed a growth of 15.9%. The refinery throughput, after accounting for the shutdown which we have taken for Mumbai Refinery, where first 45 days it was a full battery limit shutdown, and then one of the train was started, and the second train where there was a major event continued to be the shutdown, and which is under the pre-commissioning mode now. So the refinery throughput was around 2.51 million ton, and that was so the Vizag refinery operated at around 98% of its capacity, and Mumbai Refinery, after that startup, on an average had a 25% capacity utilization for the quarter, considering the full 45 days shutdown for the full unit and 45 days operation of the one of the unit in the later part of the quarter. As far as market volumes are concerned, we had a growth in all the major projects, and rather we did better than the industry as far as MS, HSD and LPG is concerned. In LPG in Q1, we had the highest ever Q1 sales of LPG. We did suffer a little bit on industrial products like lubes and bitumen, which are directly supplied from the refineries, and because the refinery had taken a shutdown, so there we had a reduction in the volume. But that once the refinery started, because the lube part of the refinery started in the second half of the quarter with one train starting, and now that will be picked up further now. As far as the profit is concerned, it was 1,795 crores, PAT with a EBITDA of 3,565 crores, and this was a bit lesser than the last year first quarter, mainly because of the 3-4 main reasons. One thing is that, as I mentioned, that we did take a plant shutdown of the refinery. Second, some on the industrial products which we directly supply from the refineries, there we had to curtail the supplies. Third part, we had a exchange rate loss because in the last year we had a exchange rate gain of 49 crore, while this quarter we had an exchange rate loss of 71 crore. Also, because of the some of the oil bonds we have, there we had an MTM 160 crore last year, which we didn't have this time. So last year first quarter we had an MTM gain of 160 crore, which we didn't have this time. And rest is the overall scenario of the crude pricing, and of course the fuel and loss, which I mentioned, that if the crude prices are going up, then the fuel cost will be higher. For the throughput which we ran, we had a GRM of $3.3, and which was as compared to $0.04 per barrel in the same quarter last year. On the other part of the things, we commissioned another 142 new retail outlets. So the total retail outlet network of HPCL now holds at 18,776. CNG facilities were added to another 50 retail outlets. With this, Now 724 retail outlets have got CNG facilities. Almost 25% of our total HPCL network is solarized. It works on solar power now. That is around more than 5,000 retail outlets. Then we have commissioned a new POL depot at Hisar in Haryana, along with a 10-kilometer dedicated tap-off pipeline from Raman Mandi Bahadurgarh pipeline, which will facilitate further optimization of logistic costs. As of today, 87 retail outlets have got EV charging facilities, and you might have read that we have some agreements and MOUs with our partners for providing the EV charging facilities. We recently had an agreement with Tata Power to provide end-to-end charging facilities initially at around 100 outlets on a pilot basis, and depending on the experience, we'll accelerate it further. This is not an exclusive arrangement, but is an important one because depending on the strength of various partners and the models which different partners are adopting, whether it is a battery swapping, whether it is a fast charger, with a slow charger, etc. We have got some other partners also, but Tata Power agreement is a significant one in this direction. I am also happy to share that in this quarter, HPCL had done the highest amount of ethanol blending. We achieved 9.3% blending of ethanol in MS. And we also taken to the ethanol blended petrol. We were the first to do even in the far-flung areas like Ladakh. One more thing I wish to share with you, that HPCL R&D Center has recently received its 100th patent. So this R&D Center was commissioned in 2016, and in a short span of 5 years, they have received, as of today, 102 patents. So that was a significant landmark for the young scientist team which is there, who are concentrating on innovation and R&D in technologies, processes, catalysts, chemicals. And out of that, around 22 products and technologies have already been demonstrated and deployed on a commercial basis, which are also being used by our own refineries and some other refineries, and some of the products are being used by other people as well. And before I end my part of the initial narration, during this COVID time, we also supported the efforts to strengthen the healthcare infrastructure, facilitate oxygen supplies, providing oxygen PSA plants, and also provide the vaccine storage facilities in the state of Punjab, Maharashtra, Chandigarh, Rajasthan, because the vaccine transportation and storage itself also needs some special equipment. So HPCL did provide this equipment and facilitated that vaccine transportation and storage in these 4 states. So with this, I open the session for the further questions which the participants may have. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. We will now begin the question and answer session. Anyone who wishes to ask a question may press star and 1 on their touchtone telephone. If you wish to remove yourself from the question queue, you may press star and 2. Participants are requested to use handsets while asking a question. Ladies and gentlemen, we will wait for a moment while the question queue assembles. Reminder to the participants, anyone who wishes to ask a question may press star and 1 at this time. The first question is from the line of Prabal Sen from Centrum Broking. Please go ahead.
Thank you very much for the opportunity, sir. Am I audible?
Yeah, please go ahead.
Yeah. So just on the refinery capacity expansions that you spoke about, in terms of the 2 million additional capacity in Mumbai and now the Vizag capacity, by end of FY22, sir, then effectively, what sort of capacity will we be working with at the both refineries, Vizag and Mumbai?
See, Mumbai should be working at 9.5 million ton per annum,
Okay.
and Vizag is supposed to be 15 million ton, but by this financial year end, we should be around 13 million metric ton per annum.
Because the bottom upgradation will still be there, which will add another couple.
So
Is
two
that the-
reasons. Bottom upgradation may help to the extent of around 0.8 million to 1 million ton, but
Okay.
I am also factoring in some ramp up timing.
Got it.
So while so I'm just trying to be conscious of that.
Right. And is it possible to put a number on you would have obviously worked out your internal targets, sir. Is it possible to get a range of the refining margin benefits that one is hoping for from these very, as you said, fairly
As far as
complicated
the
and high-end?
Mumbai-
Yeah.
As far as Mumbai refinery expansion is concerned, it will bring additional volumes
Mm-hmm.
and energy efficiency because we had 3 vacuum distillation units in refinery earlier, and that are being replaced through now there will be only 2. So 2 has been combined into 1, so that brings the energy efficiency. And the third part is because we have, along with this, we have also created a new tank farm where we have installed 47 new tankages in an additional space which we had taken as a part of this project, which is completed.
Right.
Now, what happens is this increases the total parcel size which we pump in the pipelines, cross-country pipelines.
Okay.
So that gives a more efficiency, lesser quality giveaway in the interfaces. So and the third part, which is not a immediate tangible benefit we wish to say, but it has created a space for the further things to be done in Mumbai refinery in future, if you want to, because Mumbai refinery was otherwise congested. So we have removed some of the tankages and even marketing terminal activities which were there in the refinery to an adjacent plot which we purchased.
Right.
So it will bring the energy efficiency. It will bring down the quality giveaways in the interfaces, because in the same pipeline we send the product one after the other. There is always an interface. So
Sure.
larger is the parcel size, the lesser is that interface.
Got it.
And the capacity. These are the 3 benefits which will come in Mumbai refinery. As far as Vizag refinery is concerned,
Yeah.
after the full unit is commissioned, including the bottom upgradation, it will become a zero fuel oil refinery. So there will be no bottoms actually. Everything will be distillate. And capacity, of course, will go from 8.33 to 15 million ton. And it will have the hydrocracker and again there you have 3 distillation units. So now the new one of the thing which the new CDU video which we installed is a 9 million metric ton. So one of the 1.5 million metric ton capacity will get out. That's why while the installed new unit is 9 million ton, but we are telling the increase in the capacity only to 6.88 million ton, from 8.33 to 15 million ton.
Okay.
So these are the overall benefits. Vizag refinery GNM should go to double digit after the whole project is completed, including the bottom upgradation.
Right. And so from a near-term perspective, given that this is more of a housekeeping question for Q2, since the commissioning of Mumbai's shutdown and the restart is expected in this month. So even for Q2, sir, is it fair to assume that around 50-60% will be the effective utilization?
No, because 2 things will happen. One thing is the unit which will be starting now, let's say in this month itself, already it in the pre-commissioning mode, actually steaming and all has already been started in that.
Okay.
So we are expecting to cut the crude somewhere in the middle of this month, maybe by 20th of August itself. We should be having the unit started in this month. Okay, so we'll have a 1.5 month of run with a higher capacity. And the second part of the unit is already running.
Okay.
So we should be able to have a reasonable run. And as far as Vizag is concerned, we already had a turnaround of one of the CDU unit also, which You might have heard that we had a small fire incident in one of the units.
Yeah.
So we're taking that opportunity. We have also completed the turnaround of that unit. So after the turnaround, we get a better run rate.
Right.
So it should be possible to reasonably manage the throughputs to a substantial extent. But while it's an investment for the future, I would say that unless we take the shutdown, we can't complete this project, and unless we complete the project, we cannot reach the benefit of this.
No, that's okay, sir. I just wanted to get a sense
Yeah,
what the, how the ramp up would play out. So got it. I mean, it's going to be definitely higher and closer to normal levels gradually over the next 2 quarters, from what I can gather.
Correct. So by the end of the year, we'll make up. But when we start the new units, we need to be conscious of not hurrying up too much because it's to be done properly and consciously and in a meticulous manner.
Thank you, Mr. Sen. May we request that you return to the question queue for follow-up questions. Ladies and gentlemen, in order to ensure that the management is able to address questions from all participants in the conference, please limit your questions to 2 per participant. Should you have a follow-up question, we would request you to rejoin the question queue. The next question is from the line of S. Ramesh from Nirmal Bang. Please go ahead.
Good afternoon, and thank you very much. So the first thought is, in terms of your operating performance, you have reported 0% product yield. So what kind of product yield can we work with, say, once the shutdown units are in normal operation, say, for the rest of the year?
What did you say? Display product yield.
Product yield after shutdown.
Display yield. I'm talking about the display yield, yeah.
So as far as Vizag refinery is concerned, the distillate yield will be the same for the time being, unless the Vizag refinery units are getting completed in the later part of this year. And once that is done, what I mentioned to you is that a significant change will come after the bottom upgradation unit get completed. But before that, because the hydrocracker will come, so definitely there will be improvement in the distillate yields on that. So normal distillate which we get is so around 75% distillate yields we should get on this after we restart. And after the Vizag refinery units starts, it should be a further improvement. And after the bottom upgradation comes, you should see another 5 to 7% distillate yield. So after bottom upgradation commission, almost 90% yield we should get. Distillate yield we should get.
Okay. And the second thing is, apart from the yield improvement, how do you see the light-heavy differentials moving, say, in the coming months? Given that there is some traction there, do you expect that to also add to your delta in refining margin?
So right now the delta of light and heavy itself has been a subjective matter. Sometimes the low sulfur is better than high sulfur, and ultimately it is the total GPW which governs the type of the crude diet. As far as Mumbai refinery is concerned, we are not expecting much change in the crude diet with this expansion also, and we will continue to operate, except that we will have certain flexibility because we can hydrotreat VGO also. So that will give more flexibility to us in Mumbai. As far as Vizag is concerned, we will be capable of processing 100% high sulfur crude after VRMP is completed. So in Vizag site, that flexibility will come where 100% high sulfur feed can also be processed.
Okay, thank you very much. That was quite helpful. I joined this.
Yeah.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Nitin Tiwari from Yes Securities. Please go ahead.
Yeah, Nitin, please go ahead.
The current participant has left the question queue. We'll take the next question from the line of Somaya from Spark Capital. Please go ahead.
Hi, sir. Thanks for the opportunity. Couple of questions. So
So we
one,
can't hear
can
you.
you
The
just...
audio is very low. Please increase the volume of your device.
Yeah. Is it better now?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So the first question pertains to the CapEx plans. Can you just elaborate a bit on the CapEx plans for 22 and 23, and also the segment-wise breakup, and specifically on the equity contribution of Barmer?
Yeah, so our capex plan for the current year is 14,500 crore, and as of June we have already completed 3,000 crore. Out of these 3,000 crore, it includes the equity contribution which we have made for various JVs or subsidiaries. So around 1,800 crore is for the projects which are being handled on HPCL balance sheet, and around 1,200 crore is the equity contribution for various JVs, which includes Barmer also. So in this year, we may be contributing another 1,000 crore to Barmer, which is included in the 14,500 crore total capex. Does it answer your question?
Yes, sir, it does.
Okay. Yeah.
Just a follow-up on this. So post this, what would be the remaining Barmer contribution, sir, after this 1,000 crore for this year?
See, Barmer, we have, I think, already contributed 4,000? 3,800, I think. So in Barmer, I think we have already, by now, we have already contributed around 3,800 crore, and we will be around 6,000 crore or so to be contributed, 7,000 crore approximately, over a period of next 2 years.
Can you share the inventory gain, if possible, between refining and marketing this thing? The overall inventory gain and what is included in the refining margin in the marketing segment?
Actually, we had been doing it in the past, and last time I did mention to you that actually it is creating more confusion in the mind of the analyst, because what was happening was the people were just deducting the inventory gains or losses from the total margin and saying that the margin has, GRMs have reduced or increased. But actually it doesn't happen that way. So it is a combination of too many factors, and we were looking only at one factor. Now in a normal course, it doesn't make much of a difference, because more or less the prices are not having that much of volatility. The last year, March, the first time we observed the impact of it when the crude prices fell suddenly, and in April when it gone up suddenly. And that time we realized that by just having an arithmetic addition or subtraction of this and trying to say this is the core GRM, it is neither representative, neither correct. And that's why last year, initially we had not said, when somebody asked, I did reply also, and I did mention that this time because somebody has asked, I am telling. But otherwise, we will probably like not to be confusing the people with this inventory gains and loss. That's number one. The second point is, in the volatile market, the inventory and gain loss is not just a default item. The companies can take a conscious call to decide the timing of the crude when the prices are cheaper, and can take a tactical call. Now that may lead to inventory gains, and along with it, their hedging positions or the risk management which they have. And therefore, the companies can have an operational and tactical calls on this to hold the inventories, to process, especially when the demand changes because of the various bouts of coronas which we have. So we always have a choice not to process, not to buy the crude. We had the choice to buy the crude and not process. We have the choice to process the crude and hold the products. So there are various possibilities exist. And there, if this is a normal business and then you say that this inventory gain or loss, that's one thing. But in this time, I think the inventory gains loss is a combination of many factors, including the calls of the company. And therefore, for the time being, probably I will try to refrain. Not that we don't have the figure, to tell you honestly, we have the figures. But because the narration needs a lot more understanding on this issue. So therefore, I would refrain from making a specific number on that. But suffice to say that we did have the inventory gains, which were there in this. We had an exchange rate loss, which I gave you the number of.
Got it. Thank you. I'll join back in the queue. Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Nitin Tiwari from Yes Securities. Please go ahead.
Good afternoon, sir. Thanks for the opportunity. I'm sorry there was some technical issue, so I was dropped out. Am I audible now, sir?
Yeah, please go ahead.
Yeah. Thanks, sir. So my question is related to refining profitability. More importantly, from the cost perspective. So what are our what is the cost range for us in dollar per barrel terms for Mumbai and Vizag refinery? And how did it stand in this quarter when we had lower throughput? And how do you foresee that panning out when our expansion has completed for both the refineries and bottom upgradation has also kicked in? So this is the first question.
So I think a part of this question I did answer just a little while back, probably because of your connectivity. I think you might have missed it, but I just repeat it briefly.
Right.
That we are expecting to complete the Mumbai refinery expansion commissioning in this month, and we hope to stabilize it in next 1 to 2 months. That is a bit conservative estimate on that. But the units are jobs are completed and units are already in the pre-commissioning mode. This will bring the capacity. This will bring the energy efficiency because we are replacing. We are putting up one bigger vacuum distillation unit in place of 2 smaller units which we had. And
Right.
The third part is I mentioned that we have installed a new tank farm of around 47 tanks, which gives us more flexibilities in terms of logistics, in terms of parcel size, which we pump in our cross-country pipeline from Mumbai to Sholapur, and the quality giveaway which happens in the interface, and also managing the raw number of the product which we send in the pipeline. And that is
Right.
a big, important parameter. So these are the benefits which we are expecting it to come from this, apart from the volume. As far as Vizag refinery is concerned, it will become a zero bottoms refinery after the commissioning of the bottom upgradation, and we will have the flexibility to process 100% of the high sulfur crude. We will have the distillate yield of 90% plus, and we'll have GRM of double digit on Vizag refinery once we commission all the units. In addition to that, more energy efficiency because we will have the bigger units in place of the smaller units. So these are the benefits which are likely from these 2 expansion projects, Vizag refinery expansion project, which we are hoping to complete in this financial year, except the bottom upgradation unit, which will be commissioned by the end of the calendar year 22, because it will come sequentially after commissioning the primary unit.
Right.
So,
sir, yes, sir. So that's very helpful, sir. But my question was more from the perspective of we can put this down in terms of, say, some indicative numbers that what is the cost that we have that we're incurring today in Mumbai and Vizag on dollar per barrel basis, and how it can move, qualitatively, going ahead when the expansion gets completed. And also, particularly from this quarter's perspective, did we see a cost increase because our throughput was lower and because we have taken a shutdown? So how did that cost change in this quarter? So that was the question.
Yeah, so basically we do not exactly share this small details and numbers, but I can tell you in a broad sense, because the gross margins are increasing because of the cracks of petrol and diesel are going up. As far as the operating costs are concerned, there is a small fraction of the total cost, because 95% of the cost is crude cost in the refinery. So the gross GRM, when they are going up because of the better cracks on petrol and diesel, and especially diesel, which forms a substantial component of the Indian refinery setup, so we are expecting the GRMs to go up, and which is seen also in the first quarter. It is $3.3 compared to $0.04 last year first quarter. Now, in this, one component which acts negatively is the higher crude cost, which impacts the fuel and loss component. So in the refinery, you normally have 7 to 8% of the fuel and loss. So if the crude price is higher, that higher price gets acted on that also. But otherwise, we are expecting the GRMs to improve, and that will help in improving the NRM also, because even though we are increasing the unit side, we are not increasing any manpower also, because it is either a replacement of the existing unit with a bigger size or a revamp of an existing unit by debottlenecking it. So there is no increase in the manpower size. We are not expecting any increase in the chemicals catalyst consumption. It may be the power consumption may be slightly higher because of the throughput, but there is a variable cost, and the steam cost may be higher, which is also variable cost. So overall, it should improve the net margins.
Sure, sir.
If that
So thanks for that. That's very helpful. And my second question is around ethanol blending that you mentioned that you're blending at the rate of 9.3%. I suppose Government of India has a very aggressive target of reaching 20% blending by 2025. So in that backdrop, what are your thoughts that how achievable is that target? That is one. And second, what are your thoughts on managing the logistics? Because if that target has to be met, a lot of vehicles would still not be compliant with E20. So how do we foresee that we are going to cater to both the vehicle parks which will be there in terms of vehicles which are compatible with E20 and vehicles which are not compatible with E20?
So recently there is a roadmap which has been announced, which was discussed between the Ministry of Petroleum, Ministry of Road and Surface Transport, the SIAM, which is the industry body for the automobile manufacturers, various stakeholders, ethanol manufacturers, and there is a roadmap has been drawn up where up to 25 E10 is there, then from 25 onwards E20 becomes compulsory, and from now to E20 25 you will have a certain portion of E10 and E20 available, but E10 will become compulsory within a year or so. Now the availability of ethanol wise, the various efforts which the government has taken is one of the thing is allowing the manufacture of ethanol from multiple raw material. Earlier it was basically molasses. Now you can make it out of grains, maize, rice, surplus rice, rotten grains, etc. also. So based on that, the grain-based 1G refineries have been allowed. There were certain interest subventions and the incentives are also there. As far as the ethanol uptake is concerned, the OMCs have already said that we can take the products if somebody is making ethanol, and there is a price also is declared, and there is already a mechanism to pick up the thing. The third thing which government has done is allowing the interstate movement of ethanol without permission. So those type of policy changes have already been brought up. Now, as far as the automobiles are concerned, what I understand is E10 are up to E12. I think the current vehicles can take, and once E10 becomes compulsory, the vehicles can be tuned, which will improve the efficiency also. For E20, there are some changes are required, and which automobile industries has said that in terms of certain gaskets and certain rings, etc., they need certain changes. That's what they are mentioning, and they are preparing themselves to do that. As far as the E20 vehicle can take E10, but whether E10 vehicle can take E20, there is already the automobile industry is making an arrangements for that. But the roadmap has been developed in consultation with the automobile manufacturers, ethanol manufacturers, and the concerned ministries.
Right, sir. So it will impact our logistics as well, right? Because we won't be able to have a consistent sort of fuel mix across all outlets. Some outlets will have to make pure gasoline, some outlets will have to make E10, and some outlets will have to make E20 available.
No. One minute. The ethanol blending is done on the run. So we already have created the facilities to have the ethanol. There is a separate tank in the retail outlet or the terminal or the depot, and there it is mixed. So it is not that at the depot we are manufacturing ethanol, or ethanol is manufactured somewhere else. We buy the ethanol, then it is mixed on the run. So to that extent, you will have a tank in the retail outlet or at the terminal, and that blended thing goes. But for the transportation, there are further things also has been attempted, like you can have the complete mixed, means the ethanol mixed petrol has been transported through rails, through pipelines. So those efforts also has been tried successfully. So as far as the logistics concerned, the oil industry is geared to handle that.
Sure, sir. Thank you so much, sir. That's really helpful.
Right.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Varatharajan Shivashankaran from Antec Limited. Please go ahead.
Thanks for the opportunity, sir. So with the increase in steel prices as well as rupee depreciation, do we see a significant jump in our capex costs across projects?
See, as far as Mumbai and Vizag is concerned, they are already in the completion stage where most of the equipment have already been received. And because we are doing the projects on an LSTK mode, so we are not buying the products now, and those people have already bought or tied up the supplies. Similarly, in the now, as far as Rajasthan is concerned, from the time the cost estimate is made to the extent there also is LSTK mode, but there will be some updation, because when you make the estimate, you make as of a particular day, and any this long infrastructure project, when we have made placed all the orders, then we do an update of the cost for the as-built type thing. So there we will accommodate the thing, and there normally there are contingencies which are provided originally, and we do make an update of the cost estimate at some point of time when we have placed all the orders. So we will do that for Rajasthan. But what the understanding we have, that even if there is an escalation, it meets the IRR requirement, because the products and the cracks and income tax rates, the borrowing rates, etc., also had a positive changes to that.
So as of now, is there any percentage numbers you can share, sir? Would it be higher by 5%, 10%, any kind of?
No, right now, no, because we need to, we will be going for an approval first, then only I can tell the numbers, not before that.
Fair enough, sir. I'll join back with you. Thank you.
Yeah. So as and when we do it, we'll definitely inform the you people of that.
Thanks, sir.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Kirtan Mehta from Bob Capital Markets. Please go ahead.
Thank you, sir, for the opportunity. The first question was about the HMEL Bhatinda. This time it operated about the planned rate. So what were the factors which helped it run above the planned rate? And second is, there was total contribution of around 300 crore from the JV. So could you be able to help us understand?
Sorry to interrupt you,
which were
Mr.
the
Mehta. I would request you to please use the handset mode. The audio is not coming clear, sir.
Hello, is this better?
Better.
Yeah.
Please go ahead.
Yeah, the first question is about the HMEL Bhatinda refinery. What were the factors which helped it run above the planned rate? And what was its contribution to total 300 crore of profit from JV? I'll come back with the second question later.
So as far as Bhatinda is concerned, you might be knowing that we had upgraded that capacity also from 9 million ton to 11.3 million ton sometime back. So that has reached its full capacity now and is operating at its full capacity. So that's number one. So, and because we are the off-taker for the products from them, so even though there was a demand contraction, because we have taken a shutdown in Mumbai refinery, we could operate that refinery fully and use that product for meeting our marketing requirement. So that's the answer to the first question. Second part is because the GRMs were better, so they also did better, and they were in profits, and that is a part of the 300 crore profit of the JVs which is appearing there.
Would it be possible to disclose the number in terms of the Q1
So out of 300 crore, around 125 crore is HMEL contribution itself to us.
Right. The second question was about the marketing margin. Over the since 15th of July, daily price changes have not been happening on the petrol and diesel prices. Is there any particular reason to sort of move out of the daily price change at this point of time? And what could be its impact on the marketing margin?
So as far as Bhatinda is concerned, you might be knowing that we had upgraded that capacity also from 9 million ton to 11.3 million ton sometime back. So that has reached its full capacity now and is operating at its full capacity. So that's the answer to the first question. Second part is because the GRMs were better, so they also did better, and So the marketing price is like that. If we increase also, the people are worried. If we do not increase also, people are worried. If we reduce also, people are worried. So it is more a discussion. Basically, what is happening in last few days, the prices are moving up and down, but overall, an average is hovering around the same range. So, and when we do on a 15 days average basis, these are being maintained constant for the time being. Because you might have seen the crude all of a sudden on the news, it went down, then again it came back, it went to $76, it came to $68. And as far as the cracks are concerned, they will also be moving in a range. So the prices are right now, the crude prices in the range which they are holding, the product prices also are maintained in the range, rather than giving an everyday spike and down.
Sure.
Because the volatility was more on a day-to-day basis. You might have seen that in a single day you go up by $3 and come down by another $3, something like that. It's not a consistent thing, and that is many times news driven. So like today, yesterday itself, there was a fall of I think $2.5.
Right, sir.
Okay.
I'll come back in the queue again.
Yes.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Aditya Suresh from Macquarie. Please go ahead.
Hi, sir. Thank you. Just two questions.
Aditya.
One is in terms of the Barmer project, can you give us an update in terms of your capacity plans? There's been a bit of uncertainty on kind of what exactly is going to come on stream in the next, say, 1-2 years, and then a bit longer term. So if you can just clarify specific plans which you have at Barmer for the next few years.
So as far as Barmer is concerned, it is a 9 million metric ton refinery, and it will have around 2 million metric ton of petrochemicals. That is what the original design. But as per the final design, we will have slightly more petrochemicals than what we originally thought. That's number one. So the units now are under construction at site. We are expecting to complete it by the end of financial year 23-24. That accounting for the whatever the 2 waves of corona we have seen, assuming that there is no third severe wave of that. So that is the timeline from that. And we will, because a single train, so it will not be unit wise. The startup may happen unit wise, but ultimately the whole unit will get commissioned together.
And just on the capex itself, has that been substantially increased in the past, say, 1 or 2 quarters? Can you just clarify again what the capex is for this kind of?
What is the expenditure you are talking about?
Correct. The total overall project expenditure. If you can just clarify.
As of today, we have spent around 8,000 crore on that.
Correct. And what's the planned expenditure, sir? And has that plan been revised upward in the past, say, 1 or 2 quarters? Or is there a kind of...
No, whatever is there in the beginning of the year, we are going ahead with that plan, right?
Understand. And is there something in the works to suggest that you might be looking to expand these capex plans and therefore capacity at Barmer, whether it be at petchems or refining?
For the capacities? No. Right now, the further expansion we are not planned, except while designing, we did certain optimization of the units after getting all the licensor packages and doing the detailed designing. And with that, we were able to extract certain higher quantity of the petrochemicals. We should give additional margin. That is what it is. But not that additional, like another train we are starting there or so, that is not been planned there. As of today, first we will complete this, and then only we'll take any further downstream expansion there.
Fantastic. Thank you for clarifying that. Second question was on Bathinda. So just in terms of where kind of current product prices are, etc. So any rough sense in terms of this capacity expansion at Bathinda, what sort of EBITDA we can see in the current environment?
So Bathinda, as far as refinery expansion is concerned, that is completed and commissioned earlier. Now they are making a petrochemical complex, and that is supposed to be getting commissioned in this financial year. So it is a 1.7 million metric ton additional petrochemicals will be produced there. So there is a naphtha cracker, there is a swing unit which will generate HDPE, LLDPE. Earlier they were producing only PP. So it is a 1.7 million metric ton plant, and that is in a very advanced stage. It is almost 97-98% complete, and the utilities etc. have already been commissioned there, and we are planning to commission this project in this financial year.
Thank you. Mr. Suresh, may we request that you return to the question queue for follow-up questions. Thank you. The next question is from the line of Avadut Sabnis from InCred Capital. Please go ahead.
Sir, on your existing refining project, could I reconfirm the figure that I have for your Mumbai refinery expansion is 4,300 crores and Vizag it is 23,000 crores? Are these numbers current?
No, these numbers we revised earlier. The Mumbai refinery was 5,500 and Vizag refinery was 26,000 crores. That was done earlier itself. So now, subsequent to that, there is no revision to that.
Okay. And secondly, when
that is already means those all units are ordered, and Mumbai refinery is almost getting completed now. 98% of the expenditure is already done on that.
Yeah. Secondly, sir, when you say post-expansion, Vizag refinery will have double-digit GRM, can you give us some context? I mean, would a double-digit GRM be possible, let's say, if the whatever was the pricing environment in the first quarter this year, would you have been double-digit GRMs? And if not, what is the...
Okay, let me put it this way, that they should add around $6 plus additional GRM to the whole complex. Let me put it this way.
What I'm trying to understand, Surana, is that when you're giving any number, whether it is 6 or whatever number, what is the, can you give us, are you looking at, let's say, the margins prevalent in FY18, let's say FY19, FY20? I mean, let's take this first quarter. In the first quarter, whatever was the refining environment, would that $6 still hold?
Yes, it will hold.
So, thank you, sir.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Sumit Vora from Marksans Capital. Please go ahead.
Yeah, hi, sir. A very good afternoon to you and the team. I hope everybody at HPCL are safe and sound. So firstly, I would like to congratulate you. It's been a very, very tough economic environment in the country. It does not mean that a booming stock market is actually, resilient to an economy. So very clearly appreciate, on a commendable 2,000 crore profit which you've made. So well done on that. So I have a few questions. One, sir, what is the outstanding receivable from the government? Because IOC mentioned that it was nil. So if it is nil, then can we technically assume that LPG has basically been decontrolled and prices are market linked for LPG?
Yes.
So my second question is, on the fact that the government has very recently opened up FDI to 100% in the petroleum sector to facilitate the BPCL sale. So I assume that it is a 100% FDI for the entire sector. So is my understanding correct on that, sir? Which basically means that many things happen in the petroleum sector. So thirdly, my question was, are we looking to, kind of increase our non-fuel sales, by opening consumer stores or something of that sort? Because that's the, trend globally where oil companies, are, venturing into consumer and departmental stores. And sir, if time permitting, I can just ask only one more question. You finish this and then I'll ask the last one, sir.
So outstanding from the government is 300 crore as of today. That's the first question.
Mm-hmm.
Second thing is this FDI of the government. Earlier the policy was that if you are setting up a new unit, the person even can have 100% FDI in that. But if somebody is investing in an existing PSU refinery, then it was restricted to 49%.
Okay.
So that the nature of the PSU doesn't get changed, and that was the automatic route. By approval, you can always take it even for 100% at that time. Okay. But up to 49%, it was in an automatic route without needing any permission. Now, what government has done is they have allowed 100% FDI. I have to check, to be very honest with you, I have not checked that in detail whether it has been done specifically for BPCL or under the provision that The government can allow more than 49% on case-to-case basis, whether it has been done like that or it has been done as a general rule. I have to check and then probably revert back to you.
Okay, sir.
But otherwise, for your understanding, up to 49%, it was an automatic FDI rule in an existing PSU company. And for a new company, it was 100% even earlier also. And in an existing PSU more than 49, you can do with the permission. For example, just to tell you an example, when HMEL was set up, the rule was 26%. But HMEL, Mittals had 49%. That time we had taken an approval and they had an FDI of 48.9% in this company. HMEL, what we had set up at that time. That 26% only was made up 49% subsequently. So I had to check whether this 49 is made 100% for everybody or it has been a specific provision. That's the second part. As far as third part is concerned, non-fuel income, yes, we are looking at very seriously. In fact, HPCL does have various models of non-fuel income which we are already operating. If you have traveled on Bombay-Pune highway, it's one of the biggest outlet which we have, and thus the highest sale of diesel, highest diesel sale in the country. So there you will find all sort of food joints, etc. Everything is there. But if you go across the country, you will find even the crosswords on the HPCL petrol pump. You will find McDonald's. You will find the Pizza Huts. You will find the convenience stores. You will find the hotels, dhabas. Even on the highways, you will find the barber shops, the ATMs. So anyway, we were the first to do, and it is there everywhere. We are also looking for further non-fuel income to utilize our reach in the market. And that is one of the area which is definitely and can be leveraged to create further value.
Okay, wonderful. And sir, I mean, just one last thing, if I may ask, if you can just share your thoughts, on the fact of that, how do you basically see demand for petroleum, and when do you actually think that, new mobility or any new form of energy can actually, be a hurdle for the petroleum sector? So what's your thought? I mean, do you see, if you can just help understand on that, sir?
So while a lot of things are being talked about on various new forms of energy, but whatever I read and whatever I gather from various expert agencies and as per our own assessment, there is a difference of penetration of various forms of energy in various countries differently. So what is true for an European country is not true for India. From various angles, based on various things. As far as India is concerned, I think most of the expert agencies are also of the view that at least till 2035 or 2040, the new forms of whatever the mobility or the energy resources which come, they can take a part of the incremental demand but cannot destroy the existing demand. So the peak oil demand is not before 2035 even in a conservative case. That's number one. In one of the estimate, if IHS estimate you see sometime back they had given, it was beyond 2040. Even some of IEA etc. also is 2035 and beyond. So that's the first part. So coming back to the Indian context, oil will continue to be an important part of the energy basket at least till another few decades, I must put it, at least till 2040. And in the meantime, there will be additional forms of energy, whether EV, whether biofuels, whether hydrogen, whether hydro CNG, or even some other on the mobility side or in the power side, renewables, wind, solar, etc. That will occupy a part of the space of the additional, because the cost is a factor, convenience is a factor, infrastructure is a factor. And all three will need a substantial policy push and maybe subsidy or something like that to make it popularized and adoptable. So the cost efficiency wise, IC engines will continue to dominate the space for some time. And so we will, our strategy will be to strengthen our existing business and expand in the newer areas of business, so that we have got a good and healthy mix of both, and including the non-fuel income which you mentioned. And of course, the other forms which is coming now is becoming integral, that is petrochemicals. So all refining companies are integrating with the petrochemicals. So that brings another form of resource revenue and a growth driver for future. It also de-risks your existing businesses, and it improves the margins, apart from gas.
Thank you. Mr. Vora, may we request that you return to the question queue for follow-up questions. Ladies and gentlemen, please limit your questions to one per participant. Should you have a follow-up question, we would request you to rejoin the question queue. The next question is from the line of Manikantha Gare from Axis Capital. Please go ahead.
Yeah, good afternoon, sir. Thanks for providing me the opportunity. Just wanted to check on one question. If you can highlight to us, which all companies we have partnered so far for the EV charging infrastructure, and with respect to the recent types with Tata Motors and CESL, how does the model work? Like whether there is any difference in terms of the capex, opex that you will be doing here with both the partners, or it's constant or the same across the partnerships that you are doing? That is my question, sir.
So we got around 5 partners as of today, and a startup which we are working with. And there are most of these are the OPEX models, whether the capex is spent by the partner and the revenue has got a share. That's the type of model in most of these cases. The way these the different people operates are also different. Like one of the startup has come out with a charging thing which can work like a pole, street pole itself, lighting pole. So you can directly connect to the normal power system and do a very mobile type of thing. Some people have got a battery charging stepping system. Somebody has got an app where he can meter and charge it there itself. So there are various models are available, but on a broad sense, it is more a OPEX model from HPCL side, where we share the revenue for the space and the outlet which they use for ours, and the equipment is provided by them. So we have got around 5 or 6 companies which we have this partnership.
Thank you. Mr. Gare, may we request that you return to the question queue for follow-up questions. Thank you. The next question is from the line of Sabri Hazarika from Emkay Global. Please go ahead.
Yeah, good afternoon, sir. Sir, just one bookkeeping question. You mentioned that your Vizag expansion capex has been increased to 26,000 crores. That's right?
It was increased some time back. I don't know whether at that time we had mentioned it. It is almost more than 2 years now, when we approved that.
Right. And what about the bottom upgradation project? It is part of
that. Is a part of it. Yeah, that is a part of it.
So that
includes everything. As far as Vizag is concerned, that includes everything.
Okay. And how much of that has been spent so far?
You have the figure immediately? Okay, I'll get you the figure. I don't have immediately offhand with me of the project per se, but I'll get you.
Okay, thank you so much.
Right.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Rohit Mehra from IIFL. Please go ahead.
Good afternoon, sir. What are your capex plans for the next 3 years? And it would be good if you could provide a breakup. How much would be refining, marketing, like that?
So, as far as our marketing capex is normally around 5,000 crore a year, and the refinery is also almost the same. So total 14,000 crore capex which we do, Around 5,000 crore will be marketing, 5,000 crore will be refinery plus R&D, etc., which we do. And the remaining will be JVs and the other part like IT, etc. That's the broad breakup which we have. This year capex plan is around 14,500 crore, and next year will also be almost the similar. After that, it will taper off.
Mr. Mehra, is that answer your question?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
The next question is from the
So
line.
just one thing before you go to the next question, somebody had asked for that Vizag refinery. We already spent 15,000 crore out of that. And basically there the bottom upgradation in itself cost 9,000 crore. The rest of the units most already done.
So should we move on to the next question?
Yeah.
The next question is from the line of S. Ramesh from Nirmal Bang. Please go ahead.
Thank you for the follow-up question. If you look at your gas business, is it possible to share when the volumes and contribution to revenue and earnings will be visible, and what kind of numbers you're looking at in terms of top line and bottom line for your, city gas businesses which you own directly in HPCL and maybe JVs you may have?
So we have got a city gas distribution business in 20 geographical areas with us directly and within the JVs. And we are having an LNG terminal, which you might be knowing that now it is owned by us 100%. So that is a 5 million metric ton capacity. So our desire is to have 5 million metric ton of volume, which will be around 10% of the total volume of sales which we have on the gas business in the near future, and which will get increased further as more and more stations are brought into the system. Does it answer?
Is it possible to share when you see visibility on the volumes and on the P&L impact? Just to get a sense in terms of timeline you're looking at.
So we are already marketing CNG even in our own GAs. So even in the last year, it is around, I think, 4,800 ton. In the last year also, even we had done more than 4,800 metric ton of CNG on the GAs where we ourselves are holding. Not to include the GAs of our JVs and not to include the from the petrol pumps where the GA belongs to somebody else but being sold through our petrol pumps. I am talking purely the GAs where we are having the authorization. We have done more than 4,800 ton of gas in this quarter, I think. In this quarter.
So, to take this discussion further, is it possible to tell us whether it's already EBITDA break-even or PBT break-even? What is the impact on the profitability, or will it take some more time?
So as far as the JVs are concerned, they are already in profit. So I can say that it is already broken. As far as Bhaginagar is concerned, as far as Avantika is concerned, so both have made profit in the last year and in the quarter also. Now the HP Oil, which is the third JV, it is just starting. It just started, and that will take some time to come. This is the first year of operation of that. After then they started commissioning the CNG. So as far as CNG stations are concerned, they come into profit almost immediately. So, but as the volume builds up, then it starts showing in the bottom line, basically. As far as HPCL is concerned, because we are not making the balance sheet separately for this gas line right now, and these years, so I won't be able to tell you separately, but we can work it out and let you know about that. But the JVs which were established earlier, they're already in profit.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, that was the last question. I now hand the conference over to Mr. Amit Rustagi for closing comments.
Yeah, thanks a lot, sir, for answering all the questions very patiently, and the call was quite informative. I now sincerely thanks everyone for joining this call and pray again that everyone remains safe. Thank you. Thanks for joining on this call.
Thank you, everybody, for your time, and thanks, Amit, for hosting. And wish everybody a very safe and healthy future. And we hope that the third wave doesn't come, and if it comes, it is not severe, and the economy also opens up. All of you must be desperately looking for it to happen, and we also hope the same. And the signs suggest that probably that is happening. So thank you very much. All the best to you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of UBS Securities, that concludes this conference. Thank you for joining us, and you may now disconnect your lines.